hold on, let us know. Okay, so we'll be about to start, but please keep on texting from where you are watching from. We are about to start. I would like now at this point to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. He, who is an associate professor in the Department of Applied Mathematics of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. And he received his PhD in engineering from Zhuotan University in 1999, and a PhD in mathematics from McMaster University in Canada in 2006. So McMaster is found here in Ontario. So we're glad to have you coming back to give us a talk. His research interests are infectious disease modeling and statistical analysis of data. His work on the modeling of yellow fever in Angola, Africa, won the best scientific contribution paper of International Society for Disease Surveillance in 2018. He was second place. Great job, Dr. He. So his work on COVID-19 led to 4 highly cited papers and 2 hot papers. And it will be interesting to know that Dr. He today will be telling us how climate change is affecting the spread of the disease, how isolation policy is affecting generation interval estimation, and the relationship between COVID-19 and influenza. So please, let's welcome Dr. He, and with a hand of applause. Dr. He, welcome, and thank you for accepting to give us a talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks the organizer giving me this opportunity to share my work. And I got a PhD from McMaster University, so I have a close tie to Canada. So it's a great pleasure to give this talk. So
Dr. He, are you there?
And so I have a large team and a lot of collaborators. And I have to say that the work is teamwork, really teamwork. And you can see most of the work is done by those first authors. I have some publication, you can see those first authors. So anyway, so today I want to cover a variety of topics. From the basic, of course, the estimation of some key parameters. I will talk about 3 parameters actually: basic reproductive number, serial interval, and dispersion in the infectiousness. And then I will move on to talk about climate impact on the growth, initial growth rate in China. Then I will talk about the second wave. Now we facing second wave in many countries. Then I will mention some work some data I have collected on the interference between, possible interference between COVID-19 and influenza. And then I, using my influenza model, try to model COVID-19. So I did some work on that aspect. So first, this pandemic, it's really a huge pandemic. By now, there's more than 1 million people died. And here in this table, I summarized some pandemic and epidemics in the past 100 years. And so, of course, the biggest one is 1918, right? It's so-called mother of all pandemics. It's about like 20 to 100 million people died. And then there are some other Asian flu, Hong Kong flu, and this one, all of them, all the previous one are influenza, actually, influenza pandemic, okay? And this one is coronavirus, okay? It's the first coronavirus pandemic, at least in 100 years. And it has a case fatality rate somehow between 1 to 3%. And just to compare to the 1918 widely believed is 2%. So it's really something to compare. Then, okay, let's start the basic, okay. So I presume everyone know what is a basic reproductive number, okay, or not. And then there is an incubation period, okay. So people get infected and it will take a while to show symptom, okay. So that's the incubation period. And another important parameter is generation interval. So I denoted G, okay, here, and which is strictly positive. That's generation interval is the time delay between infection and becoming infectious, okay? Infection and become infectious. The infection time of a primary case and secondary case, okay, the infection time. And it is not observable, typically, okay. So, so people using serial interval is somehow observable. It's the time delay between symptom onset of primary and secondary cases, okay. So generally, we would imagine the two should be close, okay. But, you know, it's not, it's different thing, okay. It's different thing. It's a big issue actually in COVID-19 here, because COVID-19, the incubation period is very wild. Some of them very short, some of them very long. So it makes some serial interval negative. Some observed serial interval become negative. The secondary case may have symptom earlier than the primary case symptom onset, okay? So I showed a figure on this right-hand side. So you can see that the bars is observed data and of serial interval, because it's observable, okay? And you can see there are some negative values, okay? There are quite a few negative values, okay? And then one can fit in some kind of a distribution, right? Gamma distribution, normal distribution. And you can fit in a normal distribution to get the serial interval distribution. However, what we really need is generation interval. We need that actually to the generation interval and the R0 really control the dynamics, okay? The generation interval is this this line, okay? It's strictly positive. It's strictly, you know, the primary case has to be infected before the secondary case being infected, okay? So there is something like you need to be careful, you need to estimate you need to construct the generation interval based on serial interval and some assumptions on incubation period, okay? I skip the detail. If you're interested, you can read those papers. Then there is everyone heard growth rate. Initial growth rate is because the epidemic at the beginning, from very few cases, the daily new cases will grow exponentially. So there is a coefficient. You can estimate this coefficient R, and then the R naught equal to 1 over moment generation function, and you plug in negative the growth rate, okay? I presume this audience are mathematician, okay? So it's everyone know moment generation function of the distribution of the generation interval. What everyone should know, it's moment, it's an integral or something like. And the reason I like this function because it's so beautiful. It's it's so simple, so beautiful. Okay, so I using this model. I did some work very early in January. On January 24th, I estimated R0 with very limited public available data. Okay, daily new cases in Wuhan, China. And at that time, I have no idea of the serial interval, so I used MERS. I used several, okay? Here I showed MERS, okay? MERS, serial interval. MERS is another coronavirus, okay? And so I found that if you completely believe the data is accurate, you would get a very high R0, 5. And that's not in line with WHO estimation, okay? And actually, I realized the data actually not consistent, okay? At the beginning, not very consistent. And there is a huge improvement in the reporting rate, okay? So if you adding some reasonable changes in the reporting rate, you would get some reasonable R0s, okay? So that's, I found actually very early, I noticed that, you have to consider the reporting rate changes. And my initial guess is confirmed by many other estimates, okay? So there's one paper showed that in the beginning of January, the reporting rate is lower than 5%, okay, lower than 5%. And by 24th, okay, by 23rd, it's reached like a 14%. Just, the reporting rate, cases, cases divided by actual case, reporting divided by actual cases, okay. So there is changes in the reporting or testing policy or reporting rate, which you need to consider when you estimate R0, okay, that's point one. Second point is the serial interval, as I said. Serial interval is important. We need a serial interval. Then we need some assumption on the incubation period. Then we can estimate, we can somehow construct the generation interval, okay? And however, like in China, the testing screening is very strict, okay? A lot of cases are found very early. So it will impact the serial interval, okay? It will impact the serial interval. So the cases being isolated or quarantined before before any later secondary cases emerge, okay? Or happen, okay? Proven happen. So this, so the method to estimate the serial interval is not very difficult. It's basically we observe some data, right? The time difference between symptom onset of a primary or secondary cases, and sometimes the primary cases symptom may be occur somehow because it's based on memory, so it's not so accurate. Okay, it's maybe in the interval, and there could be multiple potential primary cases. Okay, and so anyway, consider all of this. We come up likelihood function. Okay, basically we come up with this likelihood function. This is not new. It's many authors using this. Okay, many researchers are already using this. Okay, so we plug in those observed data. We find which parameter best explain the data. Okay, which parameter attains the highest likelihood. Then we get the estimated serial interval, the mean, and the standard deviation. So we assume the serial interval is a gamma function typically, okay, or some other type of function. And however, as I said, cases are isolated earlier, like so we need to consider that makes the serial interval shorter. That will shrink the serial interval. So we proposed this second model divided by a probability that the case would be isolated early. Okay, we kind of divide by it's become a conditional density. Okay, it become a conditional. It is important. So here on the right hand side, I showed two figures. Okay, this is the simulated data, okay? So I assume the serum interval is 7 days. I simulate some data, then I apply model 1. I try to estimate it. It's underestimated. Okay, so here, those diamonds show the maximum. Where is the maximum log likelihood? Okay, this is log likelihood. Okay, it's clearly shorter than the blue line. Okay, the blue line is the theoretical value. And with this, the probability of the cases being isolated early, with that, we get roughly correct answer. Okay, so that's key information. Isolation needed to be taken into consideration when you estimate serum interval. Otherwise, you get a shorter serum interval. And also, we very early we did a lot of work. We based on limited data, we found that this is the data from Shenzhen, China, and so clearly here you can see the red triangle is down triangle is female, and the solid blue triangle is male, and this is over time. Okay, you have some idea. It's quite clear. The male tends to have a longer. So if the primary case is a male, this is the primary case is a male. It has a longer serum interval. The female has a primary case as a female. Primary case is a male. It has a lower serum interval, and it's decreasing over time because of isolation. Okay, because of a control measure. Okay, it's very strict in China. And so I summarize on the serum interval, it's somehow around 6 days. And we found the impact of reporting rate on the estimated R0, and we found time vary R0, time vary serum interval, and the isolation on those finding we did very early in January or in February. Later on, other team basically with more abundant data confirmed our work. Okay, basically you can see from their title, serum interval was shortened over time. You know, that's exactly what we said in our paper. Okay, but we, based on limited data, we hypothesized that those control strategy, those shrinking the serum interval. And okay, next one. You most you never heard of this, or this is less frequently talked about. We always talking about R0. Actually, there is R0, and also there is we talking about the mean, but there is a standard deviation. Okay, there is variation of R0, individual R0. Okay, so I skipped some detail. So basically, there is a parameter K quantified the variation in the individual infectiousness or individual R0. Okay, and this K caught a lot of attention in 2003 SARS outbreak. SARS outbreak is driven by super spreader. Somehow, super spreader is the main contributor. And the SARS has a very small, relatively small K, but the confidence interval is wild. This is suggesting wild dispersion, somehow a small K suggesting large virulence. Okay, some cases has infected many, lot of cases, majority no infectiousness, not infecting anyone. And but for influenza, it has a larger K. And for this COVID-19, okay, we found that we are lucky, got some data, largest data set, we found it's relatively large, okay, compared to SARS, okay. That is one reason COVID-19 is difficult to control, okay. Based on Lloyd Smith's work, larger K implies there is super spread, but super spread is not dominant. There is most of the cases transmitted wild too. It makes your control strategy need to be, you need to try to catch everyone, okay, because it's relatively even, okay. For SARS, actually, there is super spreader. If there is a way we can find the super spreader early, we control it. It's already controlled, right? And this COVID-19, it's likely it will be persistent, okay? So because it has a K, somehow comparable to influenza, okay? So that's something I did. And other work, it's basically, this work is I quantified the asymptotic case transmission ability. I reanalyzed some other people's data, okay? This is other people's data. It's quite interesting data, okay? In Ningbo, China, and in January and between January and March. So there are a lot of cases, and they did very good work. They find all the close contacts of first generation symptomatic cases, asymptomatic cases. Then second generation, they observe it, and because they found the close contacts, okay, they can see which one eventually become infectious, okay, and which one being infected, okay. There is also symptomatic and asymptomatic, and the paper said that if you're using the number of second generation caused by symptomatic divide the closed contacts, you would find that symptomatic and asymptomatic have similar transmissibility among closed contacts. That's their message of their paper, okay. But I found that it's interesting here. Actually, the closed contacts of symptomatic and asymptomatic is not balanced, okay. Here, this one, each symptomatic has 10 contacts. Somehow here has 5 contacts. There is some reason, some weird thing going on. However, like define R0, we using cases, divide cases, okay. If you're using the cases in second generation, divide the cases in first generation, you got somehow a reproductive number, okay. If you're using the reproductive number idea, you would find that asymptomatic cases is only 1/4 the transmissibility of symptomatic cases. Okay, that's I reinterpret their data. Okay, and I think now it should be well accepted that asymptomatic cases is less transmissible. Recently I see a work in Nature or Science or something, like they argued that it's probably 1/10 transmissibility. Okay. Also, the recent work is the transmissibility is symptom dependent. Okay, severe cases higher transmissibility, and no symptom has a very low transmissibility. Okay, and then move on to the next topic is climate. So we did this work. Lucky in our team, there is someone familiar with climate. So we collect data in China between January and March, and there is 300 cities, okay? And among 150 cities, there is outbreak. And because there is a control in place, okay? So this R0 seems lower, okay? Because there is a control already in place. And then we have 150 cases, cities has somehow we can estimate the R0 or simply RE, okay, reproductive number. And then we have their temperature, okay, in that range in January and February, okay. So we found that if we assume linear relation, it's not significant, okay. If somehow we assume it's the relationship could be like a nonlinear, okay, like this fold line, or that's completely nonlinear. And then there is a ratio, there is a threshold, and above this threshold, the temperature makes the transmission decreasing the transmission. So that's something we found, but it's really marginal, okay? It's marginal. And so there is very weak evidence, okay? Then we studied other air pollution, particulate matters, and the transmission ability denoted by Arnold. And we found that it seems no impact, okay? Not significant. But PM 2.5 or PM 10 has no clear impact on Arnold. We didn't find evidence. However, we found that PM value and the fatality is positively correlated. Okay, that's something reasonable, right? It's in the seems reasonable. So we also controlled by some other parameters, okay? And this in line with some other researchers' findings, okay? We did anyway. And then the ozone, another air pollution, we found it has a negative impact on the transmission. That's interesting. That's right. It's higher ozone seems have a lower Arnold. There are many reasons. Like 2 years ago, we have a paper on ozone and influenza. We also found a very weak correlation between ozone and the influenza. So this one not totally surprising because ozone some could like kill virus, okay, but you know high ozone is also still harmful, and so anyway that's something we found, and then we checked every other air pollutions and we found no clear correlation. Okay, move on to the next topic. It's social distinction and influenza. So here I create some tables, some figures to show the picture. Okay, so this is in log scale. Okay, so I showed 4 countries. Okay, Italy, Spain, Belgium, and Norway. The reason I picked this 4 because recently I read a paper. Recently there is a manuscript, not peer reviewed. It's argued that influenza, if the influenza season come in next few months, it will significantly increasing the transmission rate of COVID, okay, by a huge amount. And that paper still under review, and that paper, not my other people's work, but that paper showed 4 countries, okay, so I kind of found it interesting conclusion, okay, right? You see, when influenza could fascinate the transmission of COVID-19, okay? And so here I showed 4 countries. So the black triangle is the COVID-19 cases, okay? The red is COVID-19 deaths. And the blue is a blue curve, it's influenza, okay? Blue curve is the influenza. And I using the same curve, showed the influenza in the previous 5 years. And I using this bold blue line, bold blue curve, showed the flu in in this year, okay, right? And the green curve here, there's green curve is I obtained the data from the paper I just mentioned, okay. So it's an index of the social distancing. So it's quite nice. You can see that the social distancing, this index kind of well matching the cases, okay, well matching the cases. And of course, the social distancing make the decreased shut off the first wave, okay, right? And also interesting, in some country you can see that, very interesting that the flu also being impacted by social distancing, of course, right? If you social distancing, other respiratory virus also would be surprised. And so this is quite clear. And maybe sometimes you can argue that the flu starts to decreasing before the social distinction, before this index take effect. Okay, this could be like there is some other voluntary social distancing before this one. This is somehow government social distancing measures. Okay, and it's interesting among these 4 countries. This is the hardest 2 countries. Okay, it seems the decreasing from the flu. Okay, from the flu compared to this year, compared to other previous year, there is decreasing deviation, but the deviation not so dramatic. Okay, and this country, okay, Norway, but it's really small country. Okay, you can see it's very clear that previous year flu is here and this year is here. So from the flu is a proxy of the social distancing, and you can see it very clear, right? And Norway has a very relatively low cases, but it's a small country, low cases and few deaths. Okay, and okay, so other countries, France, UK, you can see this year the flu is low because of social distancing and possibly of some kind of interference between COVID-19 and influenza. Okay, and here USA, okay, it's also the flu decreasing. So whatever you say, this flu give you a proxy of social distancing, and there's a distinction, and this is in Canada. Okay, right? It seems flu is a good proxy, right, of social distancing. It's a cheap, and I think it's objective. It's objective. Other measure, we don't know how effective other measure. This is give you an objective free measure. And Sweden, then I listed some other countries. Sweden is it's at the beginning, it's a no compulsory social distancing. It's a voluntary social distancing, as I wrote here. Okay, and it's quite clear. It has it's reflected in influenza cases. This is the influenza in this year, and this is this thin blue line is influenza in previous year. Right? It's quite clear. Okay. Right. Other countries, South Korea and Japan. These 2 countries relatively mild, somehow relatively successful. Okay, in terms of deaths. Okay, cases and deaths. Okay, and from Japan, you can see it's quite clear from the flu, right? Comparison of flu this year and previous year, you can see the social distancing is really effective. Okay, from this angle at least. Okay, right? It seems it's may explain why Japan is so successful, and Australia and South Africa. Australia also 2 waves. Okay, it's kind of synchronized with other countries, and it seems no flu. Okay, flu is completely suppressed. And then I gave a summary plot, showed that the most of the cases from those 54 countries, most of them has a reduced case fatality rate after June 1st. Okay, after June 1st, we can calculate a case fatality rate, like a death divided by cases with a 10-day shift. Okay, so compared after June, compared with before June. And so there are some countries see increasing case fatality rate. Okay, there, for variety of reasons. And so I summarize why there is a decreased case fatality rate in many countries. There is a harvest effect, okay, of elderly and other risk groups in the first wave. those people died, and then that pool, like hypothetically, that pool probably ran low. And then second, improve the testing and the healthcare system, definitely, right? And third, changing age structure. That's a key reason. I will show this some data later. Okay, that's probably most important reason. And also, there could be evolution. People talking about that evolution for virus probably increased this transmissibility in young health adults and children, which could be further facilitated by low compliance of social distancing in young people. And fifth, favorable environment factors, warm weather, and improved air quality due to city lockdown. That could explain why the fatality reduced. That's possible. That's possible. And then, as I said, I adding this influenza season because the first wave, somehow there is an overlap of a small part overlap of the flu season. Okay, this is some other people's argument. Okay, this could be, we will see in a next a few months. We will see if influenza eventually come back, it will, what's the impact on cases and death. Okay, and I just reading this paper by Stephen Riley. Okay, they posted this very good study in England. Okay, they did large PCR testing, and they found that a lot of factors are there, right? You might see or not, and I summarize for in the second. This is in the past 2 months. Okay, maybe after June. Okay, after June, up to now. Okay, up to October, they did a large collection of samples and PCR testing. The key message is the second wave is male, age 18 to 24, and in the north part of England, and Asian. That's interesting. This study interesting. Okay, right? You can read this paper. Okay, it's data presentation work, right? Asian male, age 18 to 24, North England. Okay, I should change it to England. Okay, they did the work in England. Okay, not the whole UK. And then, okay, move on to model. So I come up. Many people ask me to develop model. I kind of at the beginning I do not want to do. Then I write a simple model. This model I try to make my model as simple as possible. Okay, I write a conceptual model for the outbreak in Wuhan. So of course, at the beginning there is I believe everyone understand SCR type model, right? So that the new component is there is a environmental factor at the beginning 1 month, and then there is individual behavior change. I believe there is individual behavior change. When there is recently there is a lot of cases, a lot of severe cases or deaths. Okay, and people would take protection. It will reduce the transmission. Okay, and there is a government compulsory action. Okay, this you can think the behavior is a voluntary action. Okay, so I propose this model, then I fit into the observed data, and there is one peak reported because on that day, there is a change of the criterion. Okay, previously it's PCR testing 2 times or something, and here it's using clinic symptom as a criterion of a confirmed case for a short while. Okay, and it's fitting not so well. The red is reported and the blue is simulated. However, that's the point I want to make. Okay, here is the report. This figure on the right hand side is a reporting ratio. Reporting ratio is the reported case divided by the actual cases. Okay, So this blue curve, it showed the trend, okay? I believe that's what happened. And that is confirmed by many works, okay? Several science papers said, okay? Science or Nature papers said, like before January, it's probably 5%, okay? Before January, 5%. And before lockdown of Wuhan, 23rd of January, reached 14%, okay? In February, in the middle of February, reached 80%. Somehow, qualitatively matching this picture, right? So my in-line result, in line with other teams' work. Okay? And then briefly mention what I did for 1918 pandemic. 1918 pandemic, there is the 3 waves, okay, mortality waves, and it seems like generally believe that also besides voluntary behavior change and somehow government holidays, and there is a climate impact for influenza. Somehow for influenza, I think it's kind of accepted. For COVID-19, we don't know yet. We want to see whether it's eventually like the climate will have some impact. At the beginning, because it's so new, okay, it's may or may not. If you see other coronavirus, okay, in the same group, beta group coronavirus, it's seasonal, okay, it's seasonal, okay. So that's why I think researchers believe that eventually it's become COVID-19 will become a seasonal virus, okay. And then of course I fit in the model to reported mortality of 1918 influenza in many countries, many cities in UK, England and Wales. And here is a comparison of the two, okay? Comparison of the two, the red is the major wave and the winter wave of the 1918, okay? And the others, blue and green, are the COVID-19. This is in UK, England, in UK. So we need some shifting because here for COVID-19, it's the peak is in April and May, okay? And for 1918 influenza, the major wave, the spring wave, very mild, okay? Very mild. In some cities, escaped. And here, so I matching it to major wave. Of course, I need a half-year shift because there's a major wave in 19 is in the autumn, okay? And then it's somehow with some reasonable assumption, okay, reporting rate, it seems reaching the same level, okay? Interesting, it reached the same level. And the green dot is reported cases. If you based on the reported cases, then divide by some reporting rate, okay? And it's increasing. And also there is a reason to explain this sudden increasing because the testing policy changed, okay? Probably in June, before June, it's only testing severe cases. And after that, it's universal testing now in UK, okay? So the mortality is this reflected in this blue curve. So you can see quite clear. It's the mortality in the second wave reduced by a lot of reasons, as I said earlier. But it's troubling. It's increasing. Okay, it's gradually the cases probably from young transmitted to elderly again. So we are looking at this. And also, interestingly, I analyzed the pneumonia deaths and all-cause mortality in England and Wales. Okay, I found that data. I found very interesting that if you compare this year, it's the red one. This year, PNI deaths, pneumonia and influenza deaths, compared to the previous 5-year average, you find that it's so well matched. There is a almost constant difference of 550. This year it's overall lower by 550. This is a histogram showed that the difference, okay, using this year a weekly PNI deaths minus the previous 5-year average PNI deaths in the same week, okay? So here I matching the two, I adding 550 to this year, okay? You can see most part matching very well, except that there is somehow deviation. If we remove this black from this red, okay, plotted in this way, we can see that there is a herd wave of PNI deaths ahead of the COVID-19 deaths or overall access deaths, okay, quite clear. So it's reasonable because at the beginning, it seems like at the beginning, a lot of PNI deaths actually it's actually COVID-19 deaths. But at that time, doctors don't know, and there's no code. Probably there is no code available. Okay. Then afterward, they create a new code for COVID-19. Okay. So there could be a coding issue. Okay. So anyway, but it's at a small magnitude. It's reached 800, but the actual cases it's reached 8,000. Okay. But anyway, without this part will affect the estimating of, for example, R0. Okay, if you based on this black all case mortality or COVID-19 deaths, you would get a high R0. But if you add in that part, you would get somehow between 2 and 3. Okay, even though this is a small part, it's changing the estimate of R0. And some other data, they say the influenza in Wuhan, the first epicenter, okay, the blue curve and the red curve is influenza A, influenza B. And this blue curve is the COVID-19, okay. So this COVID-19 after the seasonal influenza, okay, the seasonal influenza decreased in from January 1st, probably because voluntary effect or some other, like people scared. There is already news in January 1st, there are already, okay, there is some kind of a new virus going on, right? People taking protection, okay? And then I found other interesting studies to compare the influenza cases versus COVID-19 cases among hospitalized children or influenza-like illness, okay? So this paper by Liu showed that hospitalized children, this is not necessarily influenza related, okay? Hospitalized children, there is a quite high influenza positivity. That could be like reflected the population prevalence, okay? And there is somehow quite surprising in very early January, there is a few COVID-19 cases, okay? This is among children less than 13 years old, okay? Children could be infected, okay? Based on this data, based on this paper, okay? And another paper also very interesting showed that among influenza-like illness, okay? Let's focus on influenza-like illness, okay? And of course, the influenza positivity is very high. And then the paper divided the sample size into less than 30 and greater than 30. Greater than 30, there is also high COVID-19. It's very surprising, like there's no COVID-19 positivity in this less than 30 years group. But the sample size is it's relatively small, okay? And let's assume the testing are correct, okay? It seems like there's two conclusions. I based on this comparison, simple comparison, I found that. So this could be there is a highly heterogeneity from sample to sample at this size. Okay, it could happen like this sample size. It happened. There's no COVID-19. Okay, another possibility is because this is the influenza-like illness patient group, and those young children has very high influenza positivity, okay? Influenza protected children from COVID-19, okay? Like that's one explanation, okay? That's one, but you know, I admit the sample size is small, okay? And right, another work I did recently is, again, this Kong paper showed that among influenza-like illness patients, there is a high COVID-19 positivity, okay? Right, and there is some people using this ratio, okay, using this, here I have influenza positivity and COVID-19 positivity, and this is among influenza-like illness patient, okay? I have influenza-like illness patient in each country, then I can using this try to infer COVID-19. It is dangerous, okay? With this sample size, this is dangerous because for example, in Hong Kong, we also checked the influenza-like illness patient, which has a travel history to Wuhan. And of course, we found high positive rate, and the case fatality rate, the COVID-19 rate is low, okay? Of course, this is because this is a traveling patient, okay? Those like, but this is a local patient, okay? So that could explain those ratios. But the point I want to make is we cannot using this sample size to make infer how many COVID-19 cases in Wuhan, because it's simply sample size small. You know, you see from sample to sample there is large variations. Okay, the ratio, influenza divided by COVID-19 cases. Okay, and then almost. So I did some other work to look at the growth rate, initial growth rate. I look at 10 days. I did this very early. Growth rate in US states. Okay, there are 51 states. Then I have their healthcare coverage. This is some kind of a ratio prevalence of healthcare insurance, for example, right? This quantify that, okay? And income and education. Education is how many, what's the proportion of the population has a bachelor degree or above, and other parameters, age, Spanish, and Black. And slightly surprising, I found the education is negatively impact the growth rate. High education, lower increase rate somehow. But this one not published, I just found it's interesting. And then this one I published is in Italy, because it's hit hardest in Europe. And there is a 26 province, and we found the Human Development Index, and we found the COVID-19 mortality and cases positively correlated with the Human Development Index. Okay, it could be the explanation is Human Development Index is somehow including income and age, everything, and those high Human Development Index province has a higher population of elderly, and that's could be the reason. And summary, and so I estimate basic reproductive number. I point out the reporting ratio affects the estimation, and some other reason. You always question whether your data are reliable or not. For example, in the UK, as I said, there is some cases at the beginning, even the mortality should be more reliable than the cases, but you know, even the COVID-19 cases, mortality could be in fact impacted. Okay, there's probably a proportion being classified as pneumonia and influenza deaths of unknown type. That's possible at the beginning. And the serial interval I showed that isolation of affects the estimation, and the relative transmissibility of symptomatic cases is probably low, right, 1/4. And then I found higher K in the infectious implied difficulty in control. Higher K favors the persistence, okay, favors the persistence of the virus. And then I showed that decreased case fatality rate, showed some reason, probably due to, mainly reason is patient age. And I developed a conceptual model, and so including individual reaction and government action, right? Also, I showed the improved reporting rate. So I compared 1918 Spanish flu, there is multiple death waves, and flu could have been prevented by COVID-19. Flu could prevented COVID-19 among children. That's possible, okay, based on small sample size, okay. Prevalence of COVID-19 virus among sample among influenza-like illness patient. And so data analysis and modeling may help in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. So some reference, and thank the organizer, Professor Drew and Jane, give me this opportunity, and thanks my mentor, David and Jonathan, and my mentor, Louis, give me a lot of questions. And okay, that's all.
Wow, what a great talk. Thank you very much, Daihai. You gave a great talk, and I love how you were able to draw the correlation between these cover rates and COVID-19. Please, could we give a hand of applause to Dr. He for the great talk? Thank you, Dr. He. Please, the floor is open. Feel free to ask your question using the link. If you want to come online and ask your question directly, we welcome you to ask your question. I will be happy to have you ask your question directly. Please let us know whether you want to come online and ask your question directly, or you will just want to type it here, and then either Elena or myself will be able to read the question to Dr. He, and he can be able to answer your question. And thank you so much. Dr. He, I have a question for you regarding the correlation when you're looking at the influenza cases going down. When I looked at that graph, it seems like that was not yet the season for influenza. And so I am curious to know whether where is the confounding factor there? Can you go back to the graph where you plotted Canada, for instance, in
Canada,
August, you showed Canada going down in August, right?
Okay, here, Canada.
Yeah, so if you look at the season, so yeah, between here, why was it going up here? At this point, does it mean people could contact influenza before this season? And then in August, when it's almost getting to the season before it goes down? So what I would have expected would be for this, because influenza season is still starting, for us to wait a little bit till maybe sometime in January or in March or April, to be able to see the rates or the number of cases that we had. But looking at this, it shows that influenza cases were going up and then it goes down in this month. So I'm curious to know what influenza, given that the season is still about to start.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned, yeah, it's interesting. You see, it seems like influenza also coming back, okay? It's because reduce the social distancing. That's could be, right, you see? Yeah, so as I said, I think those deviation from this year and the previous year is a measure, right? A fair measure of social distancing, right?
What data did you use? So my argument here is that we have not, the social distance effect, it's difficult to infer that at this point, given that we have not seen how that would impact that, because the season is still about to start. So I guess my worry is, what data did you use to be able to have this inference, given that since we've started this social distance measure in Canada, we have not experienced any flu season. This will be the first.
Sorry, I have a little idea. I didn't find any social distancing data for Canada. I didn't try to get it. So if there are some social distancing other measure, that would be good. Okay, here as I said again, I think this departure from previous year is a fair, objective indicator, right? And it seems coming back. It's suggesting that social distancing somehow other reason probably it's just the seasonality. Okay, it's probably just a seasonality. Yeah.
It will be fair for, go on. I think it will be fair for this going up at this point. This is the season. The season just started.
But this is the flu net data. Okay, this is the if you ask me the data, that's the flu net data. Okay.
Yeah, the season going down before, it's not clear to me how this went down here. Starting here, yes, it would make sense to me because
it's you mean it's going down quite early because that's already there's in the news. Okay, in January 23rd, a city Wuhan is locked down, so everyone heard that news. Okay, that's could changing their behavior.
But if there's no flu, what is going down? I mean, my worry is that is there flu earlier on? I think that's where I'm getting here.
What?
So for Canada, I'm looking at the situation of Canada before June. What was going down at this point?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll look into that. There's another question here from David.
Yes, David asked me, is there any reason? I'm not sure. It could be like not sure. No, don't know. Just from that, but just taking with caution because the sample size is small, and only that study. Okay, only that because only that study in Wuhan, and there is some overlap of influenza and COVID-19 in Wuhan, very short overlapping. Okay, I think we need to see more data. Okay, more study to give a definitely answer for that. Why children? I suggesting that influenza could protective with respect to COVID among children. Okay, among children, not among other. It seems more, right? You see the table, the 0 cases among children.
Right. I was just wondering whether you were aware of any biological reason to expect that to be the case, or whether that was something that had been observed for any other coronaviruses.
It seems like a coronavirus not co-infected, very low. But by the way, I can provide another. There are another 2 studies in China showed that the co-infection very low. Co-infection of influenza and COVID-19 is low. Okay, it's 1% somehow. It's not common. Okay, the co-infection is not common. And here, as I said, it's among children, only among children. The protective seems probably it's a sample issue. Okay, it's based on sample. It's due to it happened that sample size, it's small. Okay.
Okay, thanks very much.
So Professor Zhu has a question as well.
Yeah. First, thanks Daihai for the great talk. Yeah, we all know that you have done a lot of great work about the COVID across the world. Seems like you know a lot. Maybe this question a little bit big. You also have been in Ontario. China, Hong Kong, and many places. The COVID-19 has been well under control in some sense. You see, now Ontario has been recently keep increasing on the increasing trend. do you have any advice in terms of how Ontario or Canada should do to control the COVID?
I think one should increase in the testing. Okay, you tracking those close contacts and quarantine testing, and somehow protect those elderly. Okay, maybe those elderly helpers need to be regularly tested. Somehow, also like I can bring it up. For example, in Singapore, the cases going up so high, and the mortality is only 27. Okay, they have 50,000 of cases. Somehow, I think maybe there's some lesson there we can learn. But, there is one reason. Okay, it's the outbreak is among those young workers. Okay, but somehow I believe that that government did a very good work because they only have 27 deaths. Unbelievable.
Yeah, Singapore experience.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we apologize for going above 11:30 by 30 minutes. And again, we will not repeat this. We hope that next time we'll communicate clearly and start very early. Thank you so much for attending. Please, if you have not added your email to our email list, we will beg on you to please do that. We have very excellent activities, great speakers coming to the Canadian Center for Disease Modeling to give talks, and other activities that I don't want to unveil it right now, but you want to know. Please add your emails, we'll share that with you. Again, Dr. He, thank you so much for the great talk. Thank you for illustrating these correlations with us, correlation between climate change, flu, influenza, and COVID-19, and serial time intervals and under-reporting or over-reporting. Please, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. It was a great talk. If you want to continue the conversation, please let us know. We'll link it to Dr. He, and you continue the conversation for them. Please, let's give the last hand of applause to Dr. He, and thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Getting
Bye.
late in Hong Kong.